A month or two ago, I thought I had a brilliant idea for a simple game that would only take a few weeks to make, and it would be an instant success. And in this video, I'm gonna go over the process of how I made that game. Kind of. As you might be able to tell, the game took a bit longer to complete than I had originally expected, but we'll get into that later. In October 2022, I sat down at my desk reminiscing back to when I used to play this game called Ultimate Frisbee. Some of you might have heard or played this game before, but if not, I'll give you a little breakdown. It's a game composed of two teams where you pass a frisbee back and forth between your teammates. Why do you pass the frisbee? Well, it's obvious, to try and score. How do you score? By getting to the opposite side of the field that you start out on, very similarly to scoring a touchdown in football. Although, whenever you're holding the frisbee, you have a very limited amount of steps that you can take, so you're very incentivized to pass to your teammates to score. Otherwise, the opposing team will run up to you and rob you of the frisbee that you're holding, and nobody wants that. Now that you understand my inspiration for the project, I'll go ahead and jump into how I got started. I first contacted my partner on the current game that I've been working on, Superhero Strikers, a soccer/football game where you play as popular heroes. I've been working on the project for a while, and honestly, I had become pretty worn out at the time. I discussed the idea of a simple project that we could potentially make in a few weeks, and he was... Soon after that, I started setting up a Trello. Trello is a good tool to communicate tasks between developers. I normally use Trello to organize and plan the specifics of my projects. After jotting down my thoughts for what needs to be completed on the project, I got to work. I first started working on the UI. UI stands for User Interface, and it consists of all those little buttons slash frames slash text you see on your screen in games. Previously, I primarily designed my UI in Roblox Studio, but for this game, I'll be trying to create 100% of the UI in Paint on Net. I began by designing the shop UI. It only took a few hundred years, but after completing the design, I separated the details into individual layers so I can manipulate their color values accurately once I imported them into the game. I then hopped into Roblox Studio, and just like building a puzzle, I had to connect all these different pieces that I had created. It's kind of a slow process, so I'll speed it up for you. Once I had finished exporting all the different assets, I edited their color values until I was happy with the result. I then started making an animation for when players are throwing frisbees, and here's how that went. To finish up all the frisbee assets I had to create before passing could be implemented, I designed the UI that demonstrates how to pass, including a UI indicator that displays teammates you can pass to. With all of that out of the way, I can now begin 3D modeling some assets. I started off by creating the field/arena that games would take place in. Once I finished the first rendition of the arena, I then modeled some bleachers to make the field a little less empty. And I think they helped improve the field a lot. Now let's take a look at how the passing mechanic is going. It looks very promising. We'll check back later. I then tried to come up with a good concept for the lobby. Little did I know, my concept would branch into a pivotal change in the development of the project. Why? Well, let me show you. Here's a rough little concept for the lobby that I modeled in Roblox Studio. As you can hopefully tell, the model displays 4 different fields. When the idea had first popped in my head, I thought it would be great. It increases the server size by 4 times, which would make the lobby more lively and active with players. I had originally planned that teams would consist of 5 players per team, but due to the size increase, I thought it would probably be best to reduce it down to 4, which, with 2 teams per field and there being 4 fields that surround the lobby, that sets the server max to 32 players. I didn't think twice before I dived into making the lobby, and soon enough, I had created something I liked. It was pretty basic, but I plan to do more later. Everything was going good, but what I didn't take into account was just how difficult it would be to not only code an object-oriented round system that runs smoothly for 4 different matches at once, but just how hard it would be to test the game in the future. But those are problems for another day. Now we needed a way for players to be able to join into matches. I started modeling something without any concept in mind. All I knew was I wanted to make a cylinder portal type thingy. And I've made enough rounding stuff before, so this would be a breeze. Although I'm somewhat limited when 3D modeling for Roblox because I have to make sure everything runs smoothly while simultaneously looking good, aka keep the amount of polys on each model as minimal as possible, although that doesn't usually stop me from adding unnecessary small details that aren't necessary. I completed 3D modeling the portal and then I began exporting all the meshes into Studio. Soon after, I finished up all the final details by adding a beam, particle effects, and the UI. The UI was pretty basic and would simply display whenever you're near the portal. This would allow players to actually join into matches. Now let's check back and look at the passing mechanic. It looks like it's actually working, and a little better than I had anticipated, though I'm sure it'll be revised even more as development continues.
Bye bye.